Well, well, well. Good morning, you fabulous bunch of darlings and dapper gentlemen. It's moi, Emily, here to sprinkle a little fairy dust on your day with the latest scoop from the enchanting realm of Witworks. I hope you're all strolling on the sunny side of the street this fine day. Now, let's dive into the main event, brought to you by the marvelous mavens over at Gizmo League. These folks are like the Justice League of tech gadgets and gaming gear. No kidding. They're all about dishing out the coolest, most futuristic goodies that'll make you feel like the star of your very own sci-fi saga. Let's give them a big round of applause, shall we? After all, they're the reason we're all gathered here today. So, hats off to them! And don't forget to swing by www.gizmoleague.com after the show for a full-on geek-out session. Now, let's dive straight into today's juiciest tale, shall we? Top 10 Social Media Movements That Accidentally Created Division. Introduction. Social media has been a double-edged sword, a platform for connection and communication, as well as a breeding ground for division and discord. While some movements aim to unite and empower, they often end up inadvertently causing rifts within communities. Here's a humorous look at the top 10 social media movements that started with good intentions but ended up creating more division than unity. 1. Hashtag All Lives Matter versus hashtag Black Lives Matter. Alright, let's dive into this spicy meatball of a topic, hashtag All Lives Matter versus hashtag Black Lives Matter. Now, it all started with good intentions. Like most things do, hashtag All Lives Matter popped up, waving its inclusivity flag high, basically shouting, "Hey, everyone counts, right?" And sure, that's a noble sentiment. But here's where the plot thickens faster than Grandma's gravy on Thanksgiving. See, while hashtag All Lives Matter was out there trying to spread love like confetti, it kind of missed the point. It's like showing up to a fundraiser for breast cancer research and saying, "But what about all cancers?" Sure. Technically true, but we're focusing on one thing right now, buddy. And that one thing? It's the Black community and their struggles. Enter hashtag Black Lives Matter, stage left. Now, this hashtag wasn't about saying other lives don't matter. Nope, it was more like shining a spotlight on a specific issue. Imagine your house is on fire and the firefighters show up, but instead of aiming their hoses at the flames, they start watering your neighbor's garden. That's the vibe hashtag All Lives Matter gave off, unintentionally, of course. So, what do we have? A clash of hashtags, a battle of ideologies, and more tension than a rubber band ball. It's like trying to have a peaceful family dinner with Aunt Karen and Uncle Bob, arguing over politics while the mashed potatoes go cold. Now, tensions flared, misunderstandings flew like confetti in a windstorm, and suddenly, social media felt like the Wild West, but with memes instead of gunslingers. Hashtag All Lives Matter supporters felt like they were being attacked for trying to spread love, while hashtag Black Lives Matter advocates felt like their struggles were being brushed aside like yesterday's crumbs. But here's the thing, amidst the chaos and the keyboard warriors duking it out in the comments section, there's a lesson to be learned. We can champion inclusivity without diluting the message. We can acknowledge that all lives matter without hijacking the spotlight from those who need it most in that moment. So, next time you're tempted to throw your hashtag into the ring, remember, it's not about who shouts the loudest, it's about who listens the hardest. And maybe, just maybe, we can turn this hashtag battleground into a hashtag harmony. 2. Hashtag MeToo movement. The hashtag MeToo movement. The phenomenon that shook up the status quo like a particularly feisty earthquake in the world of gender dynamics. So, picture this. It's like when you're at a potluck and everyone's bringing their signature dish to the table. You've got your classic mac and cheese, some experimental vegan lasagna, maybe a questionable Jell-O mold that's been in the family for generations. It's a smorgasbord of perspectives, right? Now, the hashtag MeToo movement rolls in like that guest who brings the most talked about dish of the night. Suddenly, we're all diving into this bowl of uncomfortable truths about sexual harassment and assault. But here's the twist. As we're munching away, some folks start whispering about the ingredients. Are we missing some key flavors? Is this dish leaving out certain voices from the conversation? Yep, it's the classic potluck predicament. Suddenly, what was meant to be a collective effort against creepy behavior becomes a bit of a squabble over who gets a seat at the table. Some feminists are raising their eyebrows, saying, "Hey, what about our sisters who are doubly marginalized? They're facing not just sexism, but a whole buffet of other isms too." Meanwhile, others are side-eyeing the movement, muttering about how it seems to be skipping over that whole innocent until proven guilty thing. So, here we are, folks. What started as a united front against harassment now feels a bit like a family dinner where Aunt Karen and Uncle Bob are having a heated debate over the best way to cook Brussels sprouts. Suddenly, the battle cry of "Believe women" is getting drowned out by the sound of forks clinking against plates and voices raising in debate. But hey, let's not lose sight of the bigger picture here. Despite the simmering tensions, the hashtag #MeToo movement did something pretty remarkable. It got people talking. It tore down the wall of silence that often surrounds these uncomfortable topics and threw them right onto the communal table for discussion. And sure, maybe we're still figuring out the recipe for progress, but at least we're all in the kitchen together, aprons on and spatulas at the ready. So let's keep the conversation going, shall we? Who knows, maybe we'll stumble upon the perfect recipe for change. And hey, if not, at least we'll have some interesting leftovers for tomorrow's lunchtime debate. 3. Hashtag cancel culture. All right, let's unpack this whole hashtag cancel culture saga, shall we? Buckle up, folks, because we're diving into the deep end of internet drama, where even a misplaced emoji can land you in hot water. So, picture this. Once upon a time, in the enchanted kingdom of Twitter, there arose a mighty hashtag known as hashtag cancel culture. At first, it seemed like a noble crusade, a digital Robin Hood of sorts, swooping in to hold wrongdoers accountable for their online shenanigans. But, as with all good intentions, things quickly spiraled into a wild west of cyber justice. You see, what started as a friendly reminder to be decent human beings somehow turned into a full-blown digital witch hunt, faster than you can say, hashtag, what have you done? Suddenly, it felt like everyone and their grandma was getting thrown under the virtual bus for crimes real, imagined, or just plain misunderstood. Sure, there were moments when the cancellation hammer fell on deserving targets. I mean, if you're out there spewing hate speech or mistreating people left and right, you kind of deserve to be called out. But then, there were those cases where the punishment seemed to outweigh the crime, like when someone got canceled for wearing socks with sandals or liking pineapple on pizza. Seriously, folks, let's reserve the pitchforks for the real villains, shall we? And oh boy, did the debates rage on. Forgiveness versus condemnation, redemption arcs versus permanent banishment. It was like a digital courtroom drama unfolding in 280 characters or less. Suddenly, everyone fancied themselves a judge, jury, and Twitter executioner, weighing in on the very nature of justice like they were auditioning for a role in Law & Order, Social Media Victims Unit. But hey, amidst all the chaos and keyboard warriors duking it out, there was a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, we could use this whole hashtag cancel culture debacle as a teachable moment. Perhaps we could learn to wield our internet power responsibly, to differentiate between genuine accountability and mob mentality. After all, if there's one thing we should cancel, it's the notion that online justice can be served with a side of blind fury. So, here's to hoping that the next time someone messes up, we can pause, take a deep breath, and maybe, just maybe, resist the urge to hit that big red cancel button faster than you can say, "Oops, my bad." 4. Hashtag not my president. The infamous hashtag not my president saga. Picture this. It's 2016. The dust of the presidential election has settled, and America finds itself in a virtual frenzy. Enter stage left, hashtag not my president, the hashtag that took social media by storm faster than a cat video goes viral. Now, let's set the scene. The nation just witnessed one of the most contentious elections in history. Cue the dramatic music. In one corner, you have the victorious candidate, while in the other, you have a plethora of disappointed citizens scratching their heads, muttering, "Not on my watch, buddy." And thus, hashtag not my president was born, ready to conquer the digital world one tweet at a time. It became the go-to slogan for those who weren't exactly thrilled with the election results. Think of it as the digital equivalent of slamming your bedroom door after a disagreement with your folks. It's a statement. But, as with most things in life, not everyone was on board with the hashtag #NotMyPresident train. Oh no, cue the eye rolls and the "can we just move on already?" comments. Some folks saw it as stirring the pot, adding fuel to an already blazing inferno of political polarization. It was like throwing a lit match into a gas station. Sure, it might make a statement, but it's probably not the best idea in the long run. And then there were the accusations of being unpatriotic. You know, the whole love it or leave it spiel. Because apparently expressing dissent is akin to waving a flag of surrender and hopping on the next flight out of Dodge. But hey, who needs nuance when you've got catchy hashtags, right? But let's not forget the silver lining in this cloud of digital discontent. Hashtag #NotMyPresident served as a reminder that in America, you're free to speak your mind, even if it's in 280 characters or less. It was a symbol of democracy in action, showcasing the power of social media to amplify voices and spark conversations, for better or for worse. So, whether you were a die-hard hashtag #NotMyPresident supporter or just a casual observer watching the drama unfold from the sidelines, one thing's for sure, it was one heck of a ride. And who knows, maybe one day we'll look back on it and laugh, reminiscing about the good old days when hashtags ruled the world. But until then, just remember to keep it civil, folks. After all, we're all in this crazy democracy together. 5. Hashtag Blue Lives Matter. The hashtag game of tug-of-war in the social media arena. Picture this. You've got hashtag Black Lives Matter on one end, pulling for accountability and justice. And then, like a spunky younger sibling, comes hashtag Blue Lives Matter, determined to give law enforcement a virtual high five. But oh boy, did things get tangled up faster than headphone wires in a pocket. Now let's break it down. Hashtag Blue Lives Matter wasn't born out of thin air. It rose as a response to its older sibling, hashtag Black Lives Matter. It's like when your sibling gets a shiny new toy, and suddenly you're eyeing that last cookie in the jar with a newfound determination. So, here comes hashtag Blue Lives Matter, waving its flag for the boys and gals in blue, aiming to show some love to law enforcement. But, the plot thickens. Instead of diffusing tensions like a virtual peacekeeper, hashtag Blue Lives Matter inadvertently tossed a handful of chili flakes into the already spicy pot. Suddenly, it wasn't just about supporting law enforcement. It became this digital battlefield where sides were drawn with hashtags as swords. On one side, you've got folks advocating for police accountability, wanting to ensure that badges aren't a free pass for misconduct. They're the ones raising their voices for change, demanding transparency, and calling out injustices. Think of them as the watchdogs in the neighborhood, making sure everyone plays by the rules. Then, on the other end of the hashtag spectrum, you've got those championing the integrity of law enforcement, standing firm against any hint of disrespect or criticism. To them, it's all about backing the boys and gals in blue, no questions asked. They're the ones sticking back the blue stickers on their virtual bumpers, ready to defend their heroes with keyboard crusades. And just like that, what started as a simple show of support turned into a virtual tug-of-war, with each side pulling harder, trying to claim the hashtag crown. Instead of fostering understanding or dialogue, hashtag Blue Lives Matter ended up drawing a thicker line in the digital sand, leaving us all scratching our heads wondering how we got here. So, here we are, stuck in the tangled web of hashtags, where a simple symbol of support turned into a battleground of ideologies. Maybe one day, we'll figure out how to untangle this mess and have a real conversation. But until then, let's try not to trip over our own hashtags, shall we? 6. Hashtag Body Positivity. All right, let's dive into the fascinating world of body positivity, where the journey to self-love hits a few speed bumps along the way. So, picture this. You've got this movement, hashtag Body Positivity, marching along, waving its flag of acceptance for all shapes and sizes like a superhero of self-love. But wait, plot twist. It turns out, in its quest to embrace curves and celebrate bodies of all kinds, it accidentally stepped on the toes, or should I say waistlines, of some folks. Now, hold on to your hats, because here's where it gets interesting. While the movement was busy high-fiving plus-sized models and giving them the front row seat on the self-love train, it sort of left our skinny counterparts waiting at the station, twiddling their thumbs and feeling a bit left out. It's like they forgot to send out the memo that said, "Hey, all body types are welcome aboard." So, what happened next? Well, it's like a cruel twist of fate. While we were patting ourselves on the back for being so inclusive, we inadvertently created a whole new monster, skinny shaming. Suddenly, being slender wasn't just a body type, it was a target for criticism. It's like society's idea of balance was trying to do a tightrope walk on a wobbly plank. Imagine being a skinny person in this scenario. You're just minding your own business, maybe enjoying a salad or two, and suddenly you're bombarded with messages telling you that your body isn't real enough. It's like, what happened to my body, my business? Apparently, that got lost in translation somewhere between the donut emoji and the body positivity hashtag. And let's not forget the irony here. The whole point of body positivity was to embrace diversity, to shout from the rooftops that everybody is beautiful. But somewhere along the line, we took a wrong turn and ended up at the corner of Hypocrisy Street and Double Standard Avenue. So, what's the moral of this story? Well, maybe it's time for a little reminder that body positivity isn't a one-size-fits-all kind of deal. It's about celebrating every body, from the curviest curves to the skinniest of minis, without judgment or prejudice. Because at the end of the day, we're all just trying to navigate this crazy journey called life in the skin we're in. And hey, a little love and acceptance can go a long way, no matter what size jeans you wear. 7. Hashtag Gamergate. Alright, let's dive into the wild world of hashtag Gamergate, shall we? So, picture this. You've got your cozy little corner of the internet where gamers gather to discuss all things gaming, from the latest releases to the age-old debate of Xbox versus PlayStation. Then, suddenly, out of the blue, someone throws a grenade into the chat yelling, "Ethics in gaming journalism!" And just like that, chaos ensues. Now, don't get me wrong. Discussing ethics in any field is as important as brushing your teeth before bed. Crucial. But what started as a noble quest for truth in gaming journalism took a wrong turn faster than Mario on a rainbow road. Suddenly, it was like the floodgates of internet madness had burst wide open, unleashing a tsunami of harassment, doxing, which is basically internet speak for digging up someone's personal info and throwing it out there for the world to see, and misogyny. It was like watching a train wreck in slow motion. But instead of passengers, it was the reputation of the gaming community that was careening off the tracks. Hashtag Gamergate became the ultimate divider, pitting gamers against each other like gladiators in an arena, with gender lines drawn in the digital sand. And boy, did misogyny rear its ugly head. Suddenly, it wasn't about debating whether Link should have ended up with Zelda or not. It was about hurling vile insults at anyone who dared to speak out, especially if they happened to be of the female persuasion. Because apparently, in some dark corners of the internet, having 2 X chromosomes automatically disqualifies you from having a valid opinion on video games. Go figure. But amidst all the dumpster fires and keyboard warriors, let's not forget the real issue at hand, journalistic integrity. You know, that thing we were supposed to be talking about before the internet decided to hit the panic button and go full-on berserk mode. Because buried beneath the rubble of Twitter wars and Reddit threads, there were genuine concerns about the cozy relationship between game developers and the folks who were supposed to be critiquing their work. So, here's the moral of the story, folks. When you're wading into the murky waters of internet discourse, remember to pack your life jacket and a healthy dose of common sense. Because while discussing ethics is important, turning it into a free-for-all brawl is about as productive as trying to teach a goldfish to play chess. 8. Hashtag Vegan versus hashtag Carnivore. All right, gather round, folks. Let's dive into the wild world of dietary debates, where the battle lines are drawn between the veggie-loving vegans and the meat-craving carnivores. Picture this. You're innocently scrolling through your social media feed, minding your own business, when suddenly you stumble upon the ultimate showdown. It's not Marvel versus DC or Batman versus Superman. Nope, It's the clash of the dietary titans. At first, it all seems innocent enough. People are tossing around terms like health, ethics, and environment, trying to make their case for why their food choices reign supreme. But oh, how quickly things spiral out of control. Before you know it, your timeline resembles a verbal MMA cage match, with tofu squares duking it out against sizzling bacon strips. Who would have thought that soybean curd and crispy pork belly would become the gladiators of the modern age? On one side of the ring, you've got the vegans, armed with kale smoothies, quinoa salads, and a never-ending supply of moral superiority. They're here to save the planet, one tofu scramble at a time. Meanwhile, across the way, the carnivores are waving their bacon-wrapped banners high, proudly proclaiming their love for all things meaty. To them, a steak isn't just a meal, it's a way of life. But as the arguments fly back and forth, it becomes clear that this isn't just about food anymore. It's about identity, belonging, and maybe just a sprinkle of good old-fashioned stubbornness. Suddenly, your choice between a veggie burger and a juicy ribeye feels like a political statement, a declaration of allegiance to one dietary tribe or the other. And yet, amidst all the chaos and confusion, there's a glimmer of hope. Because maybe, just maybe, we can learn to embrace the delicious diversity of our diets without resorting to food fights, pun totally intended. After all, whether you're chomping on carrots or sinking your teeth into a cheeseburger, we're all just hungry humans trying to find our next tasty meal. So, the next time you find yourself caught in the crossfire of the hashtag vegan versus hashtag carnivore showdown, remember to take a deep breath, count to 10, and maybe treat yourself to a slice of vegan bacon. Who knows, you might just discover that the real winner of this dietary duel is friendship, understanding, and a well-balanced meal. 9. Hashtag mask debate. The infamous hashtag mask debate, where the simple act of covering one's face turned into a full-blown showdown worthy of a Wild West saloon brawl. Picture this, the dusty streets of the internet littered with memes and fiery comments, as mask wearers and mask skeptics squared off, ready to draw their keyboards at dawn. Now, you'd think that in the face of a global pandemic, the debate would be a no-brainer. But oh no, my friends, it's never that simple. Suddenly, the humble face mask became the emblem of personal freedom or the symbol of oppressive government control, depending on who you asked. On one side, you had the mask wearers, those diligent souls who embraced the fabric barrier between them and potential respiratory droplets like it was the latest fashion trend. Better safe than sorry, they'd say, donning their masks with the fervor of a superhero putting on their cape. And then there were the mask skeptics, the rebels of the pandemic era. To them, wearing a mask was akin to voluntarily suffocating under a pile of old laundry. My body, my choice, they'd retort, as if their nasal passages were the front line in the battle for individual liberty. What started as a sensible discussion about public health measures quickly spiraled into a circus of epic proportions. It was like watching a tennis match, but instead of a ball, they were lobbing accusations and statistics at each other with the precision of a seasoned pro. Before you knew it, your social media feed became a war zone, with friends and family taking sides faster than you could say pandemic. Suddenly, Aunt Martha's innocent post about her prize-winning zucchini bread turned into a battleground for the ages, with Uncle Bob and Cousin Sally duking it out in the comments section. But, amidst the chaos and the cacophony of opinions, one thing became abundantly clear. The hashtag mask debate wasn't just about face coverings anymore. It was a reflection of our society's deepest divides, a clash between personal freedoms and collective responsibility. So, the next time you find yourself knee-deep in a heated debate about masks, just remember, behind every opinionated comment and impassioned argument lies a human being, desperately trying to make sense of this crazy world we live in. And maybe, just maybe, a little empathy and understanding might be the best masks we can wear. 10. Hashtag stay at home versus hashtag back to work. The great clash of hashtags during the COVID-19 saga, Hashtag stay at home versus hashtag back to work. It's like the battle of the titans, only fought with tweets instead of swords. Picture this. On one side, you've got the hashtag stay at home warriors, armed with hand sanitizer and an endless supply of Netflix shows, urging everyone to bunker down and ride out the storm. And on the other side, charging valiantly, are the hashtag back to work crusaders, waving their banners of economic stability and chanting, "Let my people go back to the office." Now, it's not just a matter of picking sides like you're choosing toppings for your pizza. No, sir. This is a clash of ideologies, a showdown between those who prioritize public health and those who can't bear the thought of their favorite restaurant going belly up. It's like trying to decide between eating kale chips or diving headfirst into a bucket of fried chicken. Both have their pros and cons, but boy, do people feel strongly about it. The hashtag stay-at-home crew, bless their hearts, are all about flattening the curve and keeping grandma safe. They've got their Zoom happy hours scheduled tighter than a Hollywood star's Botox appointments, and they're not about to let a little thing like cabin fever cramp their style. I mean, who needs a crowded bar when you can have a virtual dance party in your pajamas? Am I right? But then you've got the hashtag back to work gang, who are itching to break free from the shackles of sweatpants and reclaim their rightful place in the office hierarchy. They miss the smell of stale coffee and passive-aggressive Post-it notes as much as a kid misses recess during summer break. For them, working from home feels like trying to run a marathon with one leg tied to a desk chair. Sure, it's doable, but it's not exactly a walk in the park. And so the battle rages on, with each side lobbing arguments like dodgeballs in a gym class showdown. "Safety first," shouts one side. "But what about the economy?" cries the other. It's enough to make your head spin faster than a politician dodging a tough question. In the end, who's right and who's wrong? Well, that's about as clear as mud in a pig pen. All we can do is strap on our masks, sanitize our hands, and hope that someday soon we can retire these hashtags to the annals of history, right next to fidget spinners and YOLO. Conclusion: while social media has the power to amplify voices and ignite change, it also has a knack for stirring up division where none existed before. These movements remind us of the complexities of online activism and the unintended consequences of hashtag advocacy. Perhaps it's time for a new movement, hashtag unity in diversity. After all, a little humor and humility can go a long way in bridging the gaps created by our virtual soapboxes. And that, my fabulous friends, wraps up our adventure for today. Here at Whitworks Studios, we absolutely thrive on the love and loyalty of sharp minds like yours. If you're up for the full VIP experience with unlimited access to our latest podcasts and want to support our creative magic, why not mosey on over to our premium subscribers club? You've got the brains, darling. You don't need a map. But before you dash off to conquer the world with your newfound wisdom, I have to give a big heartfelt shout out to our pals at Gizmo League. These wonderful folks are the real MVPs, making this podcast possible and bringing the magic of tech right to your ears. So, if you're craving some gadget goodness, pop over to www.gizmoleague.com and check out what they're cooking up. Until we meet again, keep that curiosity burning bright and stay as fabulous as you are. See you next time, my lovelies.